Welcome to Trillium's Plain Talk. I'm here as usual with my partner, Matt Gomoll, who is our Chief Investment Officer. And today we're going to talk about transferring wealth and some of the virtues of, why wait, I guess. Right, Matt?
Yeah. This is it's a topic that I find keeps coming up in client meetings. Just the idea of somebody who has saved, done really well for themselves, and is going to end up with more than enough. When is the right time to start transferring that down to the next generation, their grandkids? When can they make an impact? And there's different schools of thought, and I've seen a lot of different things done by clients. So just wanted to kind of share some experiences we've had and some thoughts around that.
Yeah, as you know, I'm a big proponent of, we see a lot of clients, they're dying with millions and millions of dollars. In fact, they're holding it so long that a lot of times their heirs are in their 70s and already have their own estates and already have the money that they need. It's not about, buying Maseratis and Ferraris. A lot of clients, they have the life that they want to live, yet they're keeping the money. So I've been involved in a lot of these conversations as well. I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this. So give us an example out there of something you're working on right now.
Yeah. So we have various clients in different states, but I've seen this. I'll tell you, this topic became really near and dear to my heart. Several years ago, client passed away. She was in her 90s, and her biggest concern was just never running out of money, being able to live in their retirement community that they loved and had been there for 10 years. And that was the only concern. And I couldn't get her to kind of see, hey, you could put this all in cash in a bank vault and just take it out. And I don't care what the retirement community raises your rent. You're never going to run out of money. You're 90 years old. You could live to 120 and you're still going to have money left over. But that was that mentality. It's really hard to change the psychology of folks, when they're just used to that, when they grow up with scarcity, perhaps. The idea of letting go can be really hard. When that client passed, her family was in their 60s, mid to late 60s, all retired, inherited it, and they all, to a person, said, gosh, this could have been really useful when I was in my 30s and 40s and raising kids and things were tight, and now I'm good. Like, we made it. We're okay. We've got our own retirement plan. And this is just kind of icing on the cake. And they immediately started shifting it down to their kids and their grandkids to help out. And so that was really what, probably 5 years ago spurred it for me to say, I need to talk to clients at the beginning of a relationship to make sure we set the tone and say, hey, I'm going to put this on your radar that from the time you talk to me, even before retirement, I want to put it out there that there might come a day where we realize you have more than enough. And now what do we do? And so that kind of gets into, the process of how do we actually run through this stuff?
So, excuse me, I know you and Sherry have a lot where you go down this road. Tom does, Jamie does. Like, set that up for us for a little bit. Like, you have somebody coming in and they have a certain mindset. And I'm 59. I don't quite have the mindset of that generation that has that. A lot of the clients you see in the 70s, they're in their 70s, 80s, or later. They have this fear, right? And part of that fear is it's unlikely that they really grew up in it, but they were raised by families who were actually facing depression and scarcity and stuff.
Yeah.
And so at a very young age, they were always told, even if they were born in the 40s or 50s, they have parents that were like, boy, this can all go away. So what does the conversation look like for a prospect or for a current client right now? Like, maybe we haven't talked to about it yet, where they come in and they've got this money and they're of that age. Like, how are you broaching the subject, and what's getting them thinking the right way?
Yeah. So the main thing it starts with is we really have to do our job as financial advisors to build that comprehensive plan that allows them to have the confidence that they're not going to run out of money. And whether it is due to either just not understanding how much they really have, or those old kind of burdens of their youth, their parents' generation, whatever it is they're bringing into that retirement age, of feeling like, I don't know that this is enough. So first is just solving with a financial plan. Do you have enough? Are you going to run out of money? And do we make sure you're not a burden to your kids? Like, those are the simple things that, while simple to be able to describe, are very complex in how you actually come about that. And convincing somebody of that is kind of hard, right? We are kind of having to overcome the psychology that somebody comes in with and say, no, through the planning process, we're going to show you it's going to be okay. And maybe that doesn't mean we start gifting at age 60, but this is the track we're on. Let's revisit it at 65, at 70. Once you see, you're retired for a few years, you realize that you're not drawing down on your money and that it's going to last, then we can start saying, all right, now that we know you're set up to not run out, you're set up to not be a burden on your kids financially, what do we do now? And then we get to start opening up the conversation around gifting, charity. And it's really about, like, when can your money make the most impact that's going to give you happiness and satisfaction and enjoyment, rather than just a lump sum when you're 90 something years old.
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of people out there too. They just kind of have this old school feeling about how they even divide up their estate. And believe it or not, like, as you know, I don't do a lot of end client stuff here, but I do know a lot of the clients, and sometimes they'll call me to have these conversations. And I had one yesterday, where really in the past 2 weeks, I've had almost the same profile. One guy was 72 or 73. The other guy was 80. But besides that, both had about $1.2 million, right? And another 800,000 in real estate with no debt. They don't spend any of their money. They don't intend on spending any of their money. They literally say, I'm not going to spend any of this money. I don't need it. I'm not going to spend it. Again, they still have the scarcity issue. But I started talking to them about what impact they could make. Like, what could it mean? And Matt, do you ever talk to people about maybe starting with smaller numbers? There's kind of a fallacy, I think, on gifting, number one, and what it means. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that, about it can be much bigger than people think. It's just how you report it. But also testing the water, so to speak. So I'm 59 years old and I'm in a fortunate position. And, I don't want my kids to take on debt for no reason. So if they need money to move or do something like that, I want them to borrow it from me. And most times, there's a good chance I'm going to end up forgiving it. There's a mindset of people having to struggle, right? And that's part of it too, is people say, well, I think they learn from the struggle. It's almost a little un-American, like I'm ironically, I know it's a goofy thing, but on Netflix right now, Little House on the Prairie, the new version's on, and you just watch that and you're like, those generations struggled. They didn't want their generation to struggle as much. They weren't like, boy, I hope my kids have to dig a well too, right? Hope my kids have to live in a tent too, right? So talk a little bit about that mindset of, can they start with a lower number? Can they start just getting into a habit of going, how can I make an impact? It's not giving something away. To me, I think we're talking to our clients about, how can I make an impact on my kids or grandkids?
Yeah, there's a few things that I want to get into based off what you just said. One is, when is it going to create the most impact? Again, that gets back to when your kid's 65 and inherits it, great. Not as much impact as when they're 30 or 40 or 50 and life's a little harder. Then you get into, we don't want to create dependence. And that gets to the values conversation that you're kind of talking about. And then also just this idea that it can be small. It doesn't have to be cash. It can be other things. But we'll get into all that stuff. We'll start with the values, right? So it's totally normal for any person to have their life experiences, think they did well, and say, I want my kids to go through what I did because look at me, like I made it, I'm doing well, I'm pretty successful. While also holding kind of simultaneously I want your life to be better than mine. Mm-hmm. So how do we kind of square this contradiction of, I want your life to be better, I want you to have more opportunity and more success, while also having the hardship that created the values and work ethic and whatever else it is. And so that's where this kind of giving, we don't want to set up somebody for dependence. right? So it's not about making your kids dependent on you and getting a handout. It's about helping them and allowing, like, freeing up their kind of cash flow or whatever it is to live a better life. A perfect example for this is just daycare. Daycare is
Mhm.
ridiculously expensive. It is certainly more expensive than when I was growing up. And so the generations don't necessarily kind of understand what the other person's going through, right? Like a parent who's 60, 70, 80 years old doesn't necessarily know, because it's just drastically different, the cost of raising a kid today. And so that's a great area. That could be small, right? It could be, I don't know, it could be $500 a month. It could be a one-time gift of a few $1,000s. Anything goes a long way to help alleviate that just outrageous burden that is childcare, pre going to school, or even if you send a kid to private school for whatever reason, like it's just all really expensive.
I've got a
So
1-year-old grandson, Matt. It's 1.5. It's $3,000 a month for daycare in Jamaica Plain.
yeah,
It's $3,000 a month. Like if they had another kid, my daughter-in-law should quit her Harvard fellowship. That's how big of
mhm.
a burden it is financially.
Yeah. And that's, I don't think anybody's discouraging hard work by helping with daycare, right? Like
Right.
you're
Right.
encouraging somebody to keep pursuing their career and do all those things and give their kids a good environment, the grandkids a good environment to be cared for in. But that's a huge financial burden. Same with home ownership. It is just materially different buying a home for a 20 or 30-year-old today than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so that's another area. Now we're talking about a much larger gift. And we've certainly helped clients assist with that down payment, right? And you can gift a large amount and assist with the down payment. But again, it's not like you're necessarily helping a child buy an outrageous home. It's just a starter home. I mean,
Right.
you might put $100,000 down payment on a starter home with somebody, and that's a huge gift. It creates, just frees up so much less mortgage, no PMI, perhaps. Like it just frees them up to get on a better track of home ownership, less monthly costs, all those things. And you're certainly not creating dependence by doing that. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to give you a little more breathing room in your budget monthly. So those are the kind of things that we don't want to set somebody up to just, receive $5,000, $10,000 a month and never have to work. It's about just creating, doing these things that set them up on a different path to be successful. Because, I mean, frankly, the game's changed since 40 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, like, I hate to get granular on you, but I think about all these things. Like your PMI is $350 a month for a house. Like if you could just help your kid out with that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, if you
Yeah.
can, if I look at it like if you could be a backstop or a bridge that helped them for the first 3 years of the mortgage while they were, working hard, making more money and getting to that point. Because I think, like using that housing example, every delay of somebody buying a house in their youth, it's getting further away and further away and
Oh,
further away
totally.
and further away. I mean, I owned my first house at like, I don't know, I was in the army, 23 or 24 years old.
Yeah,
It was,
same.
and it was easy. It was like, it was cheaper than rent, to be honest with you. Like I bought a house. People are like, why do you have this house? I'm like, it's cheaper than rent for me. And that was, by the way, that was at an 8.5% mortgage. It was still cheaper
Mm-hmm.
than rent back then. It's the pure cost of housing now, not the carry cost, but the pure dollar amount that you have to borrow is at another level right now compared to wages.
Right. And we all know that getting into homeownership helps to set you up for building wealth. And it's just the barrier to entry can be really high. And a young family may put it off for 5 or 10 years. Whereas, that retired age parent coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to help you, we're going to make this work, can give them a head start. Again, not dependence. And then that goes to the other point about when is it going to make an impact? Again, dropping $1 million on somebody when they're 65, great. They're going to have a wonderful retirement. And at that point, I look at it as the client who lived through their retirement age probably continued to be frugal, didn't, again, they have these money habits that they're not spending that much. And so they held on to it, die with $1 million, goes to a kid who's 65. Now they're just going to have a lavish retirement, right? Unless they do the same thing of passing it down, right? So it's like somewhere in here, we got to break the cycle and say, when is the right time to create impact for my family down 1 or 2 generations? And also, I think it's a great thing because if a parent does that, their kid will see that, oh my gosh, my parent helped me when I was in my 30s or my 40s. I'm going to have a mindset to pass that on and do the same and not be the person to, go to my 90s with a huge lump sum and my kids will get it when they're 65, 70.
I think there's a bit of a psychological effect too. Like if I were to coach people on it, because again, I'm at an age where my kids are having kids. And I think what people forget, so first of all, we're building curriculum right now at Trillium. Like Cherry's actively building curriculum. She's taught kids of parents already, and there's been a good feedback. Like when they're really little, when they're like preteen, when they're teenagers, even when they're in their 20s. And I think if people want to have a little bit of their values in there, I don't know, like, I will give an example on my own children. They love me, they respect me. If I were to give them some money now, they'll probably be more careful than if I wasn't here, to be honest with you. Like if you want to start building their habits, there's something to be said for, boy, you help them buy a house or you help them do something that, again, alleviates pressure, doesn't take away, there's good pressure and bad pressure, doesn't take away good pressure, but that they sit there and think like, man, when my parents come over to this house, like I'm going to have it looking good. Like they actually gave me money to do this, right? Like when my parents helped me put my kids in a private school, they're going to get good grades. Like we are absolutely going to hold them to account. So I think if you want to teach your kids good habits, even in their 20s, 30s, 40s, I just have to believe there's some human behavior on how you act, no matter how much you love and respect your elders, on how you act if they get to see you benefit from their money versus, hey, they're gone. Shows I really respect them. But I mean, there was a guy at our house the other day, like the Orkin guy, and he inherited money, and he's like, "Yeah, I bought a Maserati." Like seriously, it's like so. I don't think people do that if you teach them by gifting, at a certain time. Have you seen that at all out there?
Yeah, I have. It's interesting, like that. A lot on the home ownership thing, right? Like you said, mom and dad helped me with a down payment, and now I'm gonna like take care of it, have pride in it, appreciate it, know I didn't get there on my own, and be really grateful, right? So it just creates a different family dynamic. So that's pretty cool. The other thing I wanted to kind of touch on is, yes, you can gift cash. It can be for specific things. It can be for a down payment. It can be for childcare. It can be just general support. It can be any of that stuff. Now I'll get into like a little bit of other stuff, right? We might recommend, for tax reasons, gifting appreciated stock. That's a thing, right? We transfer the tax burden from the retiree to the child, in their 30s, who's in a lower tax bracket, who it has less tax burden on. Maybe we're changing from 20% capital gains on the parent to 15% on the child, whatever it is. That's a possible thing to do. The other thing I'll mention, and I know you were involved in this years and years and years ago, was the idea of gifting memories. And just it's part of the retiree parent spending can be just gifting vacations and time together and creating that environment where we have a client who will go rent a beach house, or maybe some years they've taken a cruise together, and bringing together, at that point even if you just have 2 adult children and then you have 4 teenage grandchildren, that's a lot of people to get together, a lot of different schedules, and left up to your own devices, it might not happen, right? So the retiree parents stepping in and saying, no, we've got this. We're going to pay for us all to get together to make memories as a family. And this is part of what we want to leave for our family, can be really impactful. And again, it's doing something that creates value for the whole family that otherwise would not get done, right? If everybody had to pay their own way, again, those parents who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, raising their own kids, they can't necessarily fund that vacation, and so it's just never going to happen. So that the retiree parents stepping up and saying, "Yeah, we've got this because it's important to us," is really cool. So I've loved seeing that play out with some of our clients.
It's my favorite thing that I've seen. Like I've seen people make big impacts, and they're a bigger impact. Don't get me wrong, but there's that vacation idea. We've seen it a few times where people put it off. They finally did it, and when they did it, they started to make it a habit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it started to become something that, like you said, like gifting memories. And man, those things go a lot further than that. Like you're spending time together as a family, and you're gifting memories, you're gifting knowledge and wisdom and all of those things, and it's very impactful. Like people's brains are worth more than anything, like what their knowledge and wisdom is. So there's so many people, Matt, that can easily do that one. And I want to remind people out there that there are levels to this, right? Like we've seen people spend 20 or $30,000 on a vacation, but trust me, you can spend $5,000 on a vacation and alleviate all that from the kids. Your kids, if you
Oh yeah.
live in the same area, you can all drive to that beach house you're renting or whatever you're doing, right? And there's ways to budget it, and I think there's ways that we would always like to help people um, realize that, because that's really, and I've thought about this, and I talked to our marketing guys the other day. I wanted to create a series called, what's your return on investment? Because I think if we had the conversation with our clients, and I don't think they would think about the return on investment except for when we tell them, right? Here's your review. You made X%. Like, what's the real return on investment, though? The return on investment for a life's work is I did these vacations for my family. I told the guy the other day, I'm like, who's 80, his kids are in their 60s. I'm like, you have $1.2 million in just investable assets. I go, do you know what like $30,000 to your grandkids would mean if you died 10 years from now? You wanted to give them a long timeline, right? He's like, well, I never thought about that. I'm like, so when you think about even afterwards passing to your family, this just kind of block, I have two kids, I split it. Like
Yep.
there's a lot of thought that can be put into how you do things while you're alive, and then how that matriculates after you pass. And I'm very excited to help people do those things. I say it all the time, Matt. Like you've seen me. I've looked at prospects and clients and said, we have too many people that are dying with like $2 or $3 million, and it's counter to what we should say, right? Like we're a fiduciary. We get paid on a fee basis. The more money you use, the less we get paid. Trust me, the happier I am, though, because it means we're doing our job. Like I sometimes question us, like, are we doing enough to encourage clients? Don't die with $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't do it. Right? Don't do it. Enjoy it and watch your family enjoy it. And like I said, teach some things about money. Anything else on this topic?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned the estate plan aspect of it, right? There's the part that you do while you're here. We want you to participate in that, enjoy seeing the memories that it can create, the stress you can relieve. All those things are wonderful. And then there's the estate plan part, right? And that is something that I would encourage anybody to just put something in place, right? And this is where we often see people get stuck because they're trying to create the perfect plan and think through all the scenarios, and then they don't put anything on paper for a year. Get something on paper. It can always be updated. You can always update wills and trusts. And then, yeah, like it's, we've seen recently a client pass and earmark a chunk of money for each of their 6 grandkids. And now all those 6 grandkids, they get $50,000 each in their 20s, and some of them were actually high school age at the time. And that's just a huge chunk to start off with. It's great, right? And it doesn't have to be all one thing. So brainstorming, using creativity, trusts allow you to control things more and say, this is actually what I want to use for. If you feel like that, you don't need to. But either version, whether it's a will or a trust, is just necessary to have your wishes expressed. And we want to make sure that get something on paper so that the government's not deciding what your, where your assets go and how to divide them.
Yeah, I'm going to be more emphatic than that. One of the conversations I had yesterday was with a parent of one of our teammates, and it's something that I told him. He has, he didn't want to leave his advisor that he's already been with for 40 years, and that was great. And I just was giving him some kind of personal advice. But I'm like, he's like my advisor. I gave him instructions on what to do. I'm like, that doesn't work. I'm like, as a matter of fact, and I think I'm right about this. I'm like, if you have your IRA beneficiaries written a certain way and your will contradicts that, your will gets overridden by that document on the IRA beneficiaries, right? It's like these things have to be in tandem. So I say I'm going to be more emphatic is you should sit down with your advisor every year and spend a few minutes on your estate plan. Sometimes you should spend more, but you should at least spend a few minutes looking at your will and going, well, this changed, because I've seen many times where I forgot I had multiple grandchildren. I never made that change, and I want to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I forgot, like one of my kids, is going through a difficult time, and maybe I want that trust to be a little tighter right now, right? If something were to happen to me tomorrow, but 5 years from now, that can change. So we have great stuff to do for people on this. Like we can do wills and trusts. We have the ability to do some of these things on a very simple level. We can, put them with estate plan attorneys on a bigger level, but I like to see people, and let's put it this way, Matt. I think that you and I are in agreement on this. Like, it's an estate plan, not an estate document, an estate plan. And that's how I want people to think about this, an estate plan. Part of that starts while you're alive and what you might do during that, and then after your death. But it's a plan. It should be more than just a document.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks, Matt. As usual, I appreciate it, and would say to everybody, click and subscribe. We're on a bunch of different platforms now. We're out there. I believe we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're still on YouTube. There's a lot of different places for you to listen to us. We would love feedback and love topics. And over the next few months, you're going to see us start to have some guests on here to talk about some important things as well. So with that, thanks, Matt, and we'll see you next time.
All right.